Hello, everyone, and welcome to Smashbox TV's podcast 365. Terry Miller, the disc golf guy, along with Johnny V, not alongside.
Not
Well,
alongside me. Well, you're next to me.
we're virtually connected. Yeah, we're virtually connected, Johnny. How you doing?
Busy. Very busy the last week with packing and selling houses and buying houses and paperwork and signing your name. I'm done with it. I'm done with it.
Yeah, I mean, you're just a regular real estate mogul. Some would call you Donald Trump.
I hope no one would ever call me that.
All right. Well, tonight, Johnny and I are in fact in different locations. I am currently just outside of Ogden, Utah. I'm here trying to relive the Worlds. I figured if I had a one-person Worlds experience, there's a chance I could claim a title. But then somebody from the Parks Department came out and challenged me today, and he beat me. So I guess there goes my one shot. But in all seriousness, I am here. And I'll just quickly give an update, and we'll talk about it more a little bit later. But I was so flattered and humbled and graciously asked by none other than Paige Pierce to have a little part in her documentary. And Wilson and the rest of the crew that you've seen running around at the tournaments throughout this entire year or most of the year have worked so tirelessly. I think he had said he has captured something like 80 terabytes of footage, and it's growing. Today we added to that. And now he's in editing mode and trying to kind of assemble everything. And I had a part in some of the narration of the year as it kind of unfolded a little bit from kind of a commentator playing type perspective, recap perspective. And so super just excited, like I said, to have any part of this. And I can't thank Wilson and family and crew and Paige. Hopefully everything turns out. Believe it or not, Johnny, I was flown to another state just to babble about disc golf for like 8 hours today. So life is good.
That's not the first time that's happened. It probably won't be the last. This is just the first time it's official.
Well, yeah, I guess that's a good way to put it. But I know that they're working on some deadlines. We may or may not see some of this get involved with some festivals and some film festivals and whatnot. I think there's some submission deadlines. I'm not sure on where that all stands for sure. I know that's kind of a lofty goal that they're going for. And we'll, of course, we'll keep you posted as much as we can. But that's why I'm here in Utah. But just a couple of days ago, as in literally like 48 hours ago, I was actually in Colorado. And you would think I would have just seamlessly went from Colorado over to Utah, but I didn't. I was out at the Rocky Mountain Women's Disc Golf Championships until Sunday night. And then Sunday night, I flew back with my two daughters, Allison and Mackenzie, and then turned around and Monday morning, ultimately drove to Chicago so that I could fly right back to Utah. And a little bit crazy busy, as you just said, but all really good stuff and super excited to be here. And what do you know? We're still going to have a show tonight. So with that, in just a second here, we're going to bring in our champion. So if you're worried about spoilers, turn it off now. But we're going to bring in our champion from the Rocky Mountain Women's Disc Golf Championships. She's going to join us. It's also her first time on the show, so you know what that means. Full interrogation. She gets all of it. And something tells me she's up for it. Lovable personality. We're going to talk to Sandra Richardson. And like I said, she's going to join us in just a moment. But that's what we've got on the show. Then we'll talk about some of the other news, some of the other big events, and Worlds, and some other things that wrapped up here in the last week or two, and what we can look forward to in the upcoming week. Also, we'll do a real quick recap on what you saw over at Stafford while I was out at the Rocky Mountain Women's. Sound like a plan?
That does sound like a plan. We're going to have to talk to Sandra and see if she's playing anywhere next week. Because you know what happens. You show up on Smashbox, you win next week. Mr. Marley continues the streak, taking down that B tier.
Yeah, I mean, we fully called it last week. Again, it's great to have winners on the show, and we love doing that. We'll continue to do that. but sometimes our winners are even pre-winners for the next weekend. So,
well, they're always
she
winners
better
when they
if
show
she's
on Smashbox. They're always winners
Yeah.
once they come on Smashbox.
Well, if she wants to keep it up, she's gonna have to sign up for something next week. So, with that being said, let's bring in this year's Rocky Mountain Women's Disc Golf Championship winner, Sandra Richardson. Hi.
Hey.
How you doing?
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. As funny as it seems, even though I've been seeing you around the country over these last couple of years, this is the first time on the show, so welcome. How you doing?
Thank you so much. Great. Still living on that high from that win.
Yeah, so we'll get to some of the details of the Rocky Mountain Women's in a moment, but we're gonna go back because you haven't been on the show, so we need to start with some of the basics so everybody can get to know you a little bit better. Give us some background story. When did you get involved with disc golf, and what got you hooked on it, and when was that?
So I started playing disc golf back in about 2012. Started playing tournaments in 2013. My brother-in-law got me hooked on it. I started playing tournaments, and that competitive edge kind of came out, and it got me really amped up to start playing. And finally went pro about 2 years ago. Just was ready for a move up, some different competition.
And where were you playing? You said your brother-in-law got you into it, but where were you playing? What are some of your home courses? What were some of your first experiences like?
Yeah. So I'm a Colorado native through and through. I've been playing in Colorado since I started playing disc golf. A lot of mountain courses and some of the city courses too, but mostly just anywhere I could play. I would do things, new courses, any chance I could get.
And what would you consider your home course, and then the follow-up to that right away is like, what's your favorite course, even if it is or isn't your home course?
Oh, so many good courses. I'd say my home course is probably Bird's Nest, which is in Arvada, Colorado, and the closest to where I've most of my favorite course in Colorado has to be Pueblo City Park, which is obviously in Pueblo, Colorado. Pretty amazing course. Otherwise, tons of awesome mountain courses here in Colorado too.
So let's talk about where you've traveled to, some of the events that you've played in, and then, so many people know Colorado, of course, for Eagle, and there's a lot of other history, so not to diminish anyone else, but Eagle is synonymous with Colorado disc golf. And, what have you experienced? What have you seen outside of Colorado, and how do you compare that to the scene in Colorado?
So I've been able to travel a little bit. I have a full-time job outside of disc golf, so sadly not travel as much as I want to, but I've been out to the Las Vegas Challenge twice now. I've played the Memorial a couple of times. I've played the DDO plenty of times because it's an easy drive. And I would just say the competition is so different when you leave the state of Colorado. We have some amazing women players here in Colorado, but obviously Eagle kind of takes the show here, so we go with that. But once you leave Colorado, the competition is different. So you have to bring your A game outside of Colorado for sure.
And talk a little bit about the courses, because I'll say, because whenever I've thought about Colorado, I think of trees and skiing and mountains and all that other stuff. But when you get there and you play, a lot of courses don't necessarily represent that. Is that a fair statement?
100%. I think most of us think of Colorado in trees, and we have a few of those courses up in the mountains, but most of our courses down here in the plains are not heavily wooded. They're pretty wide open and just kind of rip the Frisbees and let them fly. So it is kind of a common misnomer for the state of Colorado and their courses.
And then, like Utah, where I'm at the moment, elevation certainly plays a huge factor into how the discs fly. And then, as you were talking about going to an Arizona or a Vegas or a DDO, especially when I think about Kansas elevation versus, say, what you're used to, what are those adjustments like for you? Explain to someone who's never had to deal with, such a contrast in elevation.
Yeah, it's terrifying for me. I think I get so used to my bag and what I throw here in Colorado, which I throw a lot of understable to stable stuff here, and I'm just used to that. It's good for my arm speed, and then I travel somewhere like Kansas or, like you said, Arizona, and I'm like, what am I supposed to throw here? So it definitely changes a little bit. I try to keep my discs the same, maybe go a little bit heavier on what I'm throwing. But things are super stable here in Colorado, especially once you get up to the mountain courses. They're really flying stable.
And when you say understable, I mean, just explain, like, to somebody out there that's like, when you throw this disc in this spot versus how that would compare to what you're used to throwing. Like, use any disc comparison you want, but how.
Sure.
Yeah.
So here in Colorado, I throw my 165 Mamba on every tee shot. I love it. It's got a nice S curve to it. I take that to DDO, and I'm like, that's not even going to be in my bag at DDO. Okay. I'm disking up for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I can understand that. And it's funny to hear so many people this weekend talking about their discs and what they're throwing, and then how they react differently here than obviously so many other places. Do you feel like there's an advantage to you versus any of the other women? I mean, there's, nearly 100 women that come in for the Rocky Mountain Women's this year. Do you have an advantage because you're obviously used to the altitude?
I mean, I think it doesn't hurt, right? To be used to, I'm used to my bag. I don't have to change anything for my bag for a tournament like this. So that's pretty sweet.
All right. So let's get to some of the specifics about this weekend. This was the, 8th annual? I feel like I should know that right now. I think it's the 8th time that they've seen this event, or is it the 7th?
I think it's the 7th.
All right. Well, I want to give them even more credit because it's probably due anyway. So this year they had actually 118 players. So sorry about that. It's an event that takes place every other year because of the sheer magnitude and the effort and everything that it takes to put on. Explain, when they see coverage or they look at years past, explain how Purple Park comes into play and what that means and how that compares to, like you were just saying, some of the other courses in the area.
This tournament, first of all, is super special to me. This is my 4th time playing in it. Out of the 7 times, I think it's 7, maybe 8. I don't know. I'm gonna have to look it up. Then Doug Bierkes started running this tournament before he left Colorado. So kind of a special shout out to Doug and his help in pushing for the women's events. But what I will say is Purple Park has been really an amazing place for this tournament to be hosted, simply because it's a course that is doable for the women. It's not a long bomber course. I threw my mid-ranges and putters a lot on these courses used, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful setting in Colorado. So we didn't really have to worry about. Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead. I was just gonna say lush green grass, some rolling hills and such, but go on.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's different. I love that they tailor this for the women. We don't have to worry about these 600 and 700 foot holes.
Yeah, and would you say that there's anything in your game that that you favor? I mean, if it's distance, accuracy, elevation, right to left, left to right, any of that? Is there anything about your game in particular that really excites you when you go to a course and you're like, oh, this course really suits me? Like, how would you describe that course that you feel like really suits you in your game?
I'm pretty known from the local ladies around here for being a hyzer queen. I love a good hyzer shot. I'm all about the hyzer. It's taken me a long time to try to figure out how to throw straight, so it's been kind of a challenge. But I'm learning, so it's great.
Now, in watching you play, I wondered if there was any ultimate influence. Do you have an ultimate background or ever play at all?
No, I was a basketball girl since I was tiny, and disc golf kind of popped into my life at the perfect time when I hung up my rugby cleats and gave up my basketball footwear. I don't know. And so then I kind of found disc golf to give. Yes, my Jordans. Thank you. Yeah. So disc golf kind of took in that competitive edge that I was looking for. That was not gonna make me, get injured and be in the hospital. So it was perfect.
I mean, when I think about rugby or even basketball, I think about obviously high impact, high intensity, and then you go to disc golf. Like, was that weird? Did you were you doing jumping jacks to calm yourself at any point? Like, how do you simmer down so that you can focus on disc golf?
I am an avid jogger. I don't call myself a runner, but jogging kind of every morning, it kind of sets my tone for the day, lets me feel at peace with whatever the day is going to bring. And so I think that has really helped me in disc golf too, to kind of be able to calm my heart rate and my breathing and kind of work through all the issues that come up on the course.
And when you speak of issues, where do you feel like you possibly could use a little bit more help? I know you said you've tried to dial in throwing straight, which I think is a challenge literally for everyone. But what are some of the things in your game that you feel like you're still really working to fix or improve?
Well, I think just like anybody in this sport, it's such a mental game, and you're competing against the course and yourself, and really honestly just trying to forget about the last hole and move on to the next hole is so hard to do. So really working on that piece of it.
What frustrates you most when you're on the course? I mean, I know that's a really big generic question, but what do you feel like really gets you or frustrates you, whether it's something of your own or elsewhere? What really gets to you?
Sure. I think there's two things to that. I think the first thing is hitting the cage on a 12-foot putt. That really gets to me.
Okay.
And then the second thing I think is when other people on the card are negative and they start getting down on themselves, I tend to feed off of that, and I have a really hard time with that.
What would you say is if I pooled together 50 women that have played with you, and I said, give me her overall tone or demeanor or aura or presence on the course, what do you think most women would say that have played with you?
I think most of the women here in Colorado know me as a super jokester, and I lighten the mood. I try to bring the humor to the card because that's what I know. That's how I cope with everything is humor. So outside of Colorado, when you get to the bigger tournaments, I think I'm pretty quiet and reserved because I'm still kind of learning my place in those bigger spots.
So do you feel like it's yeah, I mean, that's interesting you say that when you feel like you go to a bigger event. Is that because you feel like something related to your skill set or how you finish, or it's just that you don't know those people as well?
I think it's all of the above, right? Like you want to perform to your best, but nerves get to you when you're on this bigger spotlight, and I tend to just kind of shut down a little bit more in that bigger spotlight, and instead of just letting my natural humor shine. But I also know that these women out on tour are competing for a lot of money, and I don't want to bring their game down if they're not into my humor, or maybe they're, more of the quiet type. I haven't quite learned everybody yet, so I'm working on that.
Okay, so in me learning about you a little bit more this weekend and filming you 2 out of 3 rounds, what percentage of time would you say you are officially inappropriate? How much would that be overall when you're out there? Just ballpark.
Are you talking on the disc golf course or in general?
Yes, on the disc golf course.
I mean, I would give that a good 80% of the time.
Okay. Well, then you're spot on. That aligns with what I was thinking, and I'm good with it. All right. So, as you just said, being on the tour, traveling, and all that stuff, what is it that you do full time? I want to say that pays the bills. That is your full time job. And when are you going to quit it to go play disc golf full time?
That's a loaded question. I wish I could do that, but those bills. So I'm a nurse. I work in the pediatric intensive care unit, and I've been doing that for 6 years now, and I love it. So that makes it kind of hard to quit.
Yeah, and I assume things like a consistent paycheck that's of real value, as opposed to just playing disc golf. Yeah,
sure,
that probably is also helpful.
Well, and on top of just making a huge impact on the world every single day, as opposed to disc golf, where you just basically travel around and throw a frisbee.
Doesn't sound too bad, though.
True. You are certainly doing the world probably a greater good at the moment in the role in which you're playing. Is there any world where they can somehow, I don't want to say coincide better, because I'm sure you have this balance that you're working on, but have you ever thought of being like some kind of maybe a traveling nurse where, you're on location for somewhere for 6 or 8 or 12 weeks, but then, you're traveling to a different part of the country? Have you looked into all that or thought about it?
Yeah, most definitely. It's something that is on the forefront of my mind all the time. That just means I have to travel a lot more and get used to the uncomfortable feeling of not a home base and moving around a lot more with the travel nursing. Kind of, most of them are like 13-week contracts, so you're kind of stuck in a spot for like 3 months at a time. So just kind of depends on what people are into, I guess.
So with that in mind, and if it was feasible, what part of the country could you see yourself either stationing in or even just taking an extended, disc golf travel trip or mini tour? Let's just say you had 6 weeks. Where would you find yourself going? Would it be somewhere you've already been, or is there some new places that you're anxious to check out?
I mean, so many cool places. I've never really been like traveling or disc golf related up to the northeast part of the United States. So I would love to play some disc golf up there and kind of check everything out up there.
Yeah, exactly where we're headed for the tour for the next few weeks, up to MVP, Vermont, in that general area, Maine. Yeah, certainly incredible. So when I first met you, I believe you were out and about at least, and I don't know if that was just for a weekend or a week or whatever the case might be, but where have you been, touring and you traveled with Callie a little bit, or how did any of that shake out?
So I mean, randomly, I think several years back after we played Glass Blown Open, Callie was on tour with Haley King, and she was kind of making her way out towards the west and looking for a place to stay. So we let her crash here at our house, and kind of got to know her better through that time. And I was able then to kind of travel occasionally when I would want to, and she'd be like, "Oh, you always have a place to stay wherever you want to sign up for a tournament." And so I've been able to do that. Just kind of played a lot of random tournaments here in Colorado with her, but then, like I said earlier, mostly Vegas and Memorial and Glass Blown Open or DDO now. So nothing too crazy yet.
All right. So do you see yourself taking a vacation that involves, an extended trip at any point? Is that something that you're working toward, or do you kind of just like, popping into tournaments and then coming back and so on?
I mean, I would love to do that, have an extended vacation, but I also enjoy just having the stability of being able to just kind of pop in and out whenever I can and take a week off here and there. It kind of is the best of both worlds, really.
So with the fact that you've played with in a number of big events with our FPO field, which is increasingly being more and more on tour full time, but yet, you're popping in and out. What are some of the experiences or maybe even surprises that you're like, wow, I wouldn't have guessed that, or, oh my gosh, the world should know this? Like, what are some of those good, bad, indifferent? What are some of those things that have kind of surprised you or shocked you as you've bounced in and out of some of these big events?
I mean, for me, just the how welcoming and awesome all the FPO women really have been to me. Getting just kind of randomly up throughout the tournaments with some of the big names. For me, it's fun and it's, exciting and different. You're like, I've watched them so much on coverage, and then you get to play right alongside them, and they're just super encouraging and kind of help calm the nerves that you have. I just think that's really cool, a neat experience to have. And they all just want to hang out after the rounds. Like, let's go down Fremont Street. Let's go putt. Let's go do whatever. And so I think that's pretty cool.
What's been the most unexpected thing that you feel like has happened? I mean, you don't have to keep it PG, or you can, but what do you feel like has been truly the most unexpected thing that's happened out there on the tour that you could share with everybody?
Oh boy. I don't know if I can share, Terry. I don't know. I don't know if I can do it.
I mean, okay. I mean, again, I just think you have such a unique perspective because so many more people are doing just that. They're jumping on the tour. Whether they ride it for a month or 6 months, that's becoming more and more of a thing. It's very exciting to see, but I think of yourself or a Jennifer Allen, who also in healthcare, in that world, very much goes to an event for a weekend. Maybe gets there late and has to leave immediately sometimes, or maybe she gets one extra day, but then she goes back to her 9 to 5, her regular job that's very intense. And then I think about is that stressful for you? Is that vacation-like, or, is it just this mental getaway? Like, there's got to be a lot of emotions going on when you're popping in and out of, the tour.
Yeah, for sure. I think somebody like Jennifer Allen, obviously I would never speak for her, but she's a little bit more used to being on tour and used to the people that are on tour. So she has that kind of in her back pocket, and she doesn't have to stress about oh gosh, who am I going to play with? And, what are they going to be like? Whereas somebody like me who hasn't played with a lot of these touring professionals, I'm like, oh, are they going to be quiet? Are they going to enjoy my humor? How do I act? I don't really know. And I think that part of it is stressful for me, but I really try to take each of these trips as a total vacation, and the disc golf is a bonus for me. Even though I have that competitive edge and I really want to perform well, I have to treat it like a vacation because I'm not at work and I don't have that pressure of work being. So I really do try to treat it as a vacation.
And what else do you find? I know you just said you'd love to get out to the Northeast. Maybe that's an extended thing, but what kind of makes the cut for you in terms of where you're going to go? We'll say in next year. I mean, are you thinking ahead to, oh, hey, I want to go to Maple Hill for the first time, or do you feel like you kind of have a standard set of events that you just really enjoy going to right now?
I mean, I think right now it's what's easy to travel to. How many days is the tournament, and am I able to, because as a nurse I only work 3 days a week, so it's kind of nice because I can stack my schedule up a little bit so I don't have to use a bunch of vacation time for some of the tournaments that aren't super far away. So I kind of play all of that into it to see how I can use my vacation time the best to travel to some of these events. I haven't fully started looking into next year yet because I really am curious to see what happens with this crazy pandemic and where things are going to kind of settle out in terms of my job, but also with disc golf.
How has, there's a couple of questions here, but how has the pandemic affected you directly at your job? You know, what kind of new challenges or, I mean, I don't want to underplay because I'm sure they're incredible, but what are some, shed a little light for someone that just may not understand what you have to go through. I'll put it that way.
Sure. I mean, being that I work in a pediatric unit, thankfully, most of our kids have not really been affected by COVID. But last year I did volunteer to go work in the adult ICUs during the rush of COVID. And I saw a lot of things that nobody would ever want to see, nobody would ever wish on their family members. And that was intense, was a lot to handle. I really truly used disc golf as my escape to not think about all that stuff I was having to deal with. And then I think this year, being in pediatrics, we're really seeing the effect that the pandemic is having on our youth. The struggling with depression and anxiety and suicide and drug overdoses and gang violence, eating disorders, all that kind of stuff is really taking a toll on our kids, and it's sad. So it's a lot to see.
I can't imagine. And then, of course, we hear of so many people that all the mental and physical strains and stresses that it's put on everyone within healthcare. And I, of course, like so many others, would extend a big hug and thank you to everyone out there, yourself included, that's done everything to help us fight through all of this. As someone asked on the board, what led you to that field of medicine, or that specific area of medicine and healthcare in the first place?
I don't know. It's kind of crazy. I never thought about being a nurse. I was like, oh, I'm better than a nurse. I can do more than a nurse. I'm smarter than that. And the more I exposed myself to healthcare, I was like, what am I talking about? That's exactly where I want to be. I'm the biggest advocate for my patients. I get to be right there next to them during the hardest times and the best times. And I love working with kids. I've always loved working with kids. I thought maybe I'd be a teacher one day. But my love for science and all of the cool things that the human body does, I was like, oh, what a perfect match. So it's really, truly rewarding. I love, love, love working with kids.
Okay, that makes sense. So I guess switching gears just a little bit and kind of going back into the Colorado disc golf scene and everything that's happening in terms of helping try to grow women's disc golf, in having conversations with, obviously we have the great tournament directors, Kyle and Ray, and everything they're doing, but then having conversations with people like Erica and a few of the other people there, what what is the women's disc golf scene like in Colorado, and maybe share a few of the triumphs or the tidbits that somebody else could be like, oh, hey, it's working here, and here's what we could take from that. Sell me on the women's disc golf scene in Colorado.
Man, it's awesome. It's so fortunate because it sounds kind of selfish when I say, like, I haven't really done a lot in that scene, and I just kind of show up because we have such amazing women like Allie Dorado, who runs a lot of the women's leagues in Boulder, and Erica helping out with Erica and Lauren Johnson helping out with the Mile High Disc Golf Club and the ladies tags. And there's easily 3 to 4 different tag matches, women tag matches every week in the Denver metro area. It's really awesome to see, and knowing that my job is kind of crazy and everybody has their crazy job, but I just feel fortunate that we have so many strong women that are willing to stand up for disc golf, and they show up every week and do the hard work, and I just get to show up and play with them. So it's pretty neat to see.
Well, and to be fair, if somebody's taking charge and doing a bang up job, I'm sure you assist where you can, but not everybody can be, in charge. So if there's people out there, doing that work, and, you're doing things like saving lives and working with kids, during the day, it's not so bad if you can just show up and enjoy yourself during your downtime as well. Would you say that the Colorado scene, from what you've heard from other people, is it similar? Is it different? How would you compare it to anyone else that you've talked to? Because you hear people all over the country share their experiences with women's disc golf. What have been some of your conversations?
Honestly, I feel like the Denver metro area has some of the biggest grouping of women out there. I think all the different tag matches, like all over, like I said, the women's global event every other year. So that's kind of why Rocky Mountain Women's Championship was made to be every other year, so that it would offset the women's global event, which we've had a huge turnout for our women's global events every other year. And, just doing more all women's tournaments and all women's events, it really draws the women in. And I feel like Colorado represents for the women.
I agree, and I kind of knew the answer to that question before I asked, but I love hearing it. I'm glad that you fully embrace that and recognize, like, it seems like it's just an incredible scene. And there's pockets all over the country, and of course everyone's trying to grow women's disc golf, but just some have been, I feel like, a little more successful than other areas. And Colorado seems like it really has a great thing going. And again, hats off to the men and the women. I feel like that really make that happen. What would you like to see, as you're, again, a person that jumps on and in and out of big events? You play locally, but what would you like to see in order for women's disc golf to grow and to thrive? Knowing you have so much other sporting background, where are we falling short, and how do we fix it?
I think that's a loaded question. I don't know if I know enough about the sport to be able to say what the shortcomings are, because for me, I've been pretty satisfied and happy with the way that things are going. And I know there are a lot of voiced opinions and frustrations with some of the way things go. But I think for me, I have a hard time speaking to that, because I do just kind of jump in and out of the scene so randomly that I don't get to see all of the innate details of what goes on tour in terms of the women's scene. I think really just getting the word out and getting more women into the sport is ultimately what's going to grow the sport for the women.
Yeah. Can you make any comparisons? As you just said, you were talking about basketball, rugby. can you make, and of course team sports as opposed to this individual sport at a much slower pace, but can we make any, what can we learn? Like how do we get it more popular in that sense?
I think having more all women's events where women don't feel intimidated by the thought of having to play with men, or knowing that they're not going to throw as far as the men. Like, what does that exactly look like? Does that mean different pars? Does that mean different tee pads? Like, I think just honestly creating more solely women events is going to draw more of the women to the event.
Yeah, and as we said, the Rocky Mountain Women's, I don't think there's anyone that does it better. I mean, there's a lot of great events out there, and I've attended a lot of them on the all women's side, but Rocky Mountain Women, I don't want to just say they spoil the heck out of you guys, but can you compare it? And I don't just mean from a better or worse than, but have you been to any other women's events that, where you took something away from those events?
I honestly really haven't. I've played in a lot of women's global events, but I haven't even played in like U.S. Women's Disc Golf Championship or anything like that. I just know like the support. I think the other big thing for us in our women's disc golf in Colorado is the support that we get from the men here in Colorado, and our tournament directors, especially like Ray Woodruff being our Colorado go-to guy. But between him and Kyle and a lot of the guys, they're so women driven in the disc golf scene that it super helps promote these events. And I just think it's really cool to have the support from guys like that. We're really lucky to have that.
Yeah, and as I said, I've been to a ton of great events, and I love seeing the women's only events. I echo what you're saying about, I think that's a great catalyst to getting more women introduced and then hooked on the sport in terms of a competitive tournament setting. But I'll always say I feel like the Rocky Mountain Women's is one of the best and most spoiling events that there is out there. Everything that those guys do to make that event so incredible. It feels like it's second to none. And if there's a better one, then they're killing it as well. And I'd love to see it, and I'd love to promote it and attend it. But you guys are very fortunate for sure. Yeah, exactly. All right. So at this point, with you not necessarily being on the tour or doing it full time, do you seek out, or are you open to sponsorships? Is there anyone you want to shout out? Are there any companies that we should be sending these clips to? What do you got?
I'm an open book. Anybody, help me out.
All right. Well, let's backtrack. What do you throw now?
Well, I will first say that I want to give a shout out to First Flight Disc Golf here, straight out of Longmont, Colorado. They actually reached out to me just this week about joining their team, and they're a pretty new startup company, and I'm stoked to work with them. And so I know quite a bit of the people on the team, so I'm pretty pumped about that. Otherwise, right now, I kind of have a mixed bag, which is fun. It's fun to be able to do that. Nobody's paying me to throw their plastic, so I'm able to I do throw a lot of Innova plastic. Got some Trilogy plastic in there, a little bit of what else I got in there? Discmania, I've got a couple of theirs, but kind of a mixed bag.
Well, and I'm looking at this weekend, and I'm seeing that you were going into the weekend, you were tied for the fourth highest rating out of all of the women that were competing, and then at 874. But then when I look at what you shot in terms of your rating, sorry, I had it here a second ago. You probably know. You should know. 911, 917, and 957. So averaging probably about 920-ish, 925-ish golf. How do you how do you feel like that was? I mean, you picked up the W, which is all that really matters, but how do you feel like that compares to your rating and your overall skill set?
I mean, I feel like I played really well this weekend in comparison to my ratings, and it's something I've really been working on. I would love to see my rating. My goal was really to get up closer to 890 by the end of the season. I don't know if I'm going to make it there, but I guess these rounds will help me with that a little bit.
Yeah, I would say so. Again, I'm not that quick on math. I want to look it up, but I won't. But yeah, certainly whenever the next rating update is, maybe it's in a few weeks. So we joked about it at the opening of the show that, of course, we love to invite champions that join us from the previous weekend's events. But we also, the last few weeks, have kind of predicted the upcoming weekend's champion. So you're in this position like almost none other. You just won. And what do you, I mean, please tell me you found an event for this weekend.
Oh, man. Yeah. The only event I found for this weekend was to work.
Oh, okay.
Well, let me just say,
I know.
You working, if you win, everybody wins at your job.
That's true.
So with that, I'm seeing the next sanctioned event. I see the Johnny Roberts Memorial in Fort Morgan. You have that scheduled for the September 18th and 19th weekend. So that's a good 4 weeks out yet. Will that be sanctioned or otherwise? That will be your next event or no then?
Yeah, I think at this point that's what I'm looking at as my next event. I was able to take quite a few weekends off in a row, and so now I'm kind of stuck working some weekends and just kind of trying to get back in the mind frame of tournament ready come a few weeks from now.
All right, and I see some of the usual suspects: Sabrina, Erica, and Liz. Three women competitors that not only were all part of coverage at some point, but also have obviously then competed this weekend. So it looks like it's going to be a good battle. You guys are all within a stroke or two of one another, at least on paper, and we're going to have to see how that plays out in a few weeks, huh?
Definitely. Some of my favorite ladies to play with in the state of Colorado. They're so much fun.
What does it mean to take down this event? It's your biggest victory. It's your largest paycheck. It's in Colorado. Like, what is it? What did this weekend mean to you?
I mean, I don't even know if I can put it into words yet. I think it's just I've been kind of floating. I mean, it's an event that to me really means a lot. Like I said, just drawing all the women in. And in years past, we've been fortunate to get a lot more of the touring professional women to come out here. I know this year was just kind of a weird timing where the tour is right now. So we didn't get a lot of those big names. Really, I mean, it gave me an opportunity to kind of step up and see what I could do. And maybe Purple Park has had my number and I haven't played well there. So I kind of went into it with a different mind frame this weekend, having a blast and knowing that I wasn't. And I think it actually really worked out for me.
Yeah, it seemed like your mindset and then everything just kind of came together for you. And as you said, you come out victorious. And one of my final questions would be, in the years that I've been there, this was the fourth time I've had the honor of being there. We have seen some of our touring professionals. It kind of weaved, and was a stop within their schedule. This year, everyone's already on the East Coast and it wasn't within their tour route. I know it's an opportunity, like you said, for someone else to step up and possibly take down this victory. Is that okay with you in the sense that, like, hey, this is a great event and I'm playing it no matter what? Or are you really itching and yearning for that idea of like, oh man, we really want all the best women in the world here? Does it make a huge difference to you?
No, and I think it is a little bit of both feelings, right? Like that gave me an opportunity to shine. But it is also that, like, I love seeing the touring professionals come to Colorado because it doesn't really happen on the men's side or side very often. And so to have a prestigious event like this, it's pretty fun to see some of those top women here competing and see how they stack up against the elevation and the courses that are here in Colorado. It's always fun to see that.
Yeah, and I had even mixed emotions. I mean, of course, we love seeing when the tour, it works out to be on the tour, but also it had a little bit more, just of that local vibe this weekend. And I mean, there's still 118 competitors there, huge success in every possible way. But the vibe was just slightly different, for a lot of the reasons that you just said. So, yeah. All right. I was going to ask you, what again did Callie say just before I was filming you? But maybe we'll skip over that or not.
Probably should skip that.
What? Go ahead if you're good with it. Give us any final shout outs, anything you'd like to say. The floor, the mic is all yours. We'll start to cut you loose after that. But is there anything else you'd like to share with the world?
No, I mean, thank you, Terry, for coming out to Colorado and bringing your girls out here. It's so fun to watch them grow up, every other year. Having them come out here to compete is really awesome. And we appreciate your time making the trip out here and to filming us local girls. It's kind of fun. So thank you for that. Thank you guys for having me on your podcast tonight. And I just look forward to seeing more of you guys out there on tour.
Awesome. Well, I know just before I reached out, or when I reached out, you said you've never really done one of these podcast things. Well, you killed it. We're super great to have you, and I have a feeling I'll be talking to you in the winner's circle more in the upcoming years. So looking forward to it.
Awesome. I can't wait. All
right. Have a good night. Again, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Good night. Thanks.
All right. See ya.
Good night.
Yep. All right, Sandra Richardson taking things down. If you couldn't tell, she definitely enjoys herself out on the course, and I felt like every minute there was another joke that was getting cracked, and just the overall atmosphere and the tone and the aura, like everything surrounding this event is always top notch and a lot of fun. And I think her smile and everything else as she was reflecting on this weekend says it all. So huge shout out to Ray. Thank you so much for entrusting me to come out and again be part of it again this year, and Kyle, and then the entire crew there. And then on a even more personal note, we got to spend time with Jeff Hungerford, who was a gracious host to me and my two girls, Allie and Kenzie, Jeff and his buddy Dave, and we got to see Dave Wastebloom, just all these people that it's just such an experience to come to the other side of the country to now have like this well-established, incredible event, and then to see Parks people and I apologize, I think her name's Lydia. She comes out and supports the event, which is she's kind of a conduit to the town, and I cannot say, you guys always hear me kind of gushing about this event, and it's going to continue to happen until you or your lady friend and or whomever get out there and participate in it, because it's that awesome of an event. So thank you to all of those people. Anyone else that supported my daughters who are trying to shake them down to buy bracelets or discs or shirts or whatever. Thank you to all of those people. And then a ton of incredible sponsors. Dynamic Discs I know is a big sponsor, but also Discmania is title sponsor, along with all the other vendors that were out there. So huge shout out to all those guys. It was pretty cool. It's pretty darn cool. All right, Johnny.
How did your daughters do at the event? I saw that Kenzie was in a field of her own. being the
Kenzie.
under 10.
Yeah, Kenzie was in the 10 and under, and wow. To preface this briefly, my daughters don't play golf. They're not dying or passionate to get out on a course and play. In fact, we pretty much dusted off their discs the day or two before we left, and I got them throwing a few discs in the field again, and they got all the bags and discs, everything they need. But we get out there, and the way this tournament was set up is Friday, some divisions played, like some of your advanced divisions and your pro divisions. And then Saturday afternoon, the FPO division played. And then Sunday, the FPO division played. But on Saturday morning, they have the junior girls play just one round from junior tees. And thank goodness for all of that. And the very first hole is this beautiful hole number 17, one of the most beautiful holes at the park. They all are. And there's OB way right, and then there's sidewalk immediately left. And all I said is just don't throw it left. And both girls, first throw right out of bounds on the left side. It's just so I can only be so mad, clearly. But I'm just like, no, that's like the worst spot to go. Don't do that. That's exactly what they did. So they got off to a rough start, but then they were just fine. Yeah, it's funny to see how they're better than they were a few years ago, but I think that's just been, physical stature, that they can throw a little bit better without necessarily much practice. When it was all said and done, on one of the shortest holes on the course, one of the holes that Allie, the only one she got a birdie 2 on 2 years ago, she threw it out of bounds and ultimately walks away with a 4, a bogey. Kenzie throws this incredible tee shot. She has this easy up and down, and then she launches her approach like 100 feet. She only had 30 feet to the pin, but she launched it 100 feet past the basket, misses the comebacker, taps in for the 5, and kind of the poetic beauty or justice in all of it is the final hole, double bogey and single bogey, ultimately knotted them both up for an even tie out of the entire round. So they arrived at those scores in very different fashions. I think they were plus 17 or plus 18, but they arrived at them in very, very different ways throughout the round. And of course, being a dad of a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old, the fact that they tie in some ways like reduces, I don't want to say stress, but there's not a whole lot of ribbing that goes on with the fact that they tied. So Kenzie was in a field of her own. She got an incredible trophy, as their trophies are always top notch. Allie took second to Jocelyn, and just a huge shout out to Jocelyn. She's amazing. She's 13, I think. So they were in the 15 and under, and her father also said she doesn't play a lot or very little, but she's got incredible form. She made some super impressive putts. She was driving a number of holes with her putter. She's really good.
I hope you looked at yourself and were like, what am I doing as a dad? God darn it.
I failed my daughters. Like, I'm going to drag them out to the course, even though I don't go out there. I'm going to drag them out there. So
we're both in that field. Don't worry.
Yeah. So and Erica's out on the board. Erica at one point, even though she had played already in the morning, Erica graciously took the bag for both Mackenzie and Allison and was dual caddying throughout the course. And so, yes, of course, thank you, Erica. I was being the bad dad in that I was just working a camera. And so I didn't caddy for either of them, but Erica stepped in and was an incredible caddy for both of them, and they very much appreciated that. So
that might not be allowed into the future PDGA rules, buddy. Just let me tell you.
Oh, because you have to be of certain age or have certain parental
I think
guidance.
Technically, if you're under a certain age, you have to have like a guardian. I think is what the term, not necessarily parent, but a guardian. walk
Well,
with
Erica
you.
was officially the guardian. The question is, how many can you, in that situation, and I know you were joking, but to take this into a serious note, could you guardian two players that are on the same in the same card? That's a good question.
I would guess you can.
Because but I think the spirit of the rule, what they're going for out there, is that basically tournaments or the rules are trying to kind of prohibit the idea of like, hey, you and your child go to an event, but you're kind of treating the event like it's now become a babysitter in the same sense. Now, clearly, plenty of kids and young adults can go out and play and conduct themselves as mature, serious, competitive players. But sometimes, and you've seen this, Johnny, sometimes kids get brought to an event, they're put in a different division than where you're playing, and then next thing you know, you may or may not catch wind later that ultimately the other people on the cart somewhat had to corral and in some ways babysit, your child. I think that's exactly what they're trying to avoid.
Yeah, that's exactly what they're trying to avoid.
So either way, thank you so much to Erica. She said that she was having fun and reigniting her spirit a little by watching the girls go out and tackle the course. And I can't say it enough. Ray and Kyle and the club and our host Jeff just made it such an incredible weekend. All right. Johnny, now it sounds like a good time to recap a few other winners from the weekend.
Yeah, real quick, we'll talk about Am Worlds. Neither you or I really had much to do with Am Worlds this year. I know that's kind of strange. In the past, you've been there. Many years ago, I've been there, or we've helped. Mm-hmm. We've done a little coverage in the past. Smashbox has of Am Worlds. But when we last left off, Ezra Hapner had the lead last Tuesday. I think it was after 2 rounds. He finished 6th.
1 or 2. Yep.
He finished 6th. Sorry, Ezra. Congratulations on a good event. But Evan Scott more or less kind of crushed the field. I'm looking right now. He shot -63. Now remember, this is what, 7.5 rounds. So 7 rounds and a final 9. He was at -63. They don't have round ratings out of this for some reason. I was trying to look for round ratings.
Probably because the pools, I'm guessing the pools were really tough to follow.
The pools.
Because there was all these different pools. So the pools really mess up.
AAA, ABA, BBA. Okay, yes, you're right. That probably messes everything up. Second place was Robert Burridge, who was the highest rated player. The second highest rated player was Evan Scott, who won. So they went technically 2-1, 1-2. So congratulations to both of those gentlemen. Third place was Aiden Scott. Fourth place was Michael Messer-Smith. Not Messerschmitt, Messer-Smith. So no relation to Messerschmitt. So that is your top advanced men. Moving down to advanced women, it was actually a much closer battle. Allie Smith takes this by 1 stroke over Julie Mowens, and this one it will let me show the round ratings because of the
pool.
Pool. It's supposed to be. It says show round ratings, but then of course the top 15 don't have them on there, so that does not help me out much at all. So Allie Smith wins this over Julie Mowens, and I saw a video of Allie having to hit like a 15 to 20 foot uphill putt on an elevated basket.
Yeah.
So she was shooting up at it to take the win. So had she missed that, assuming it lands, she would have gone into a playoff with Julie. But thankfully, Allie was able, well, thankfully, unless you're a fan of Julie. Sorry, Julie. Thankfully, Allie was able to hit the putt and take home the win. So she actually wins the advanced women's field over 42 other women. So Julie Mowens takes second. Chantel Badinsky is third. Chelsea Basley is fourth. And fifth place was Aria Castruida.
just narrowly edging out her sister by a single stroke in Melody, who I've seen a couple of times. I've seen them out there. And they have another sister, Haley, who finished down in 22nd. So
that's up there for some of the bigger families playing, especially in one division, which we don't see very often. We have, as we've talked about, the Schultzes, and we'll get into the Frasers in a little bit when we talk about Stafford. Amateur Masters 40 plus, Ralph Matrua wins that division. Amateur Masters Women's 40 plus, Serenity Madison 50 plus for men, Trevor Tejones. That's what I'm going to go with.
Out of Florida.
All right, good. Masters Women 50 plus, Aaron Fitzpatrick. Amateur Masters 55, Sam the Dodd Dodd. Congratulations. Amateur Masters Women 55 plus, Cheryl Zimmerman 60 plus, Ted Mowens. Masters Women 60 plus, Maureen Miller 65, Michael Schweitzer. Amateur Masters Women 65 plus, Mary Moeller 70 plus. Wow, there's a lot of Amateur Masters 70 plus. Congratulations, man. Wow, that's a 22-man field.
I think there's also a significant pull from Florida in that division, which is great.
What are you saying, Terry? That there's just a bunch of old people in Florida?
I didn't say such a thing.
Yes, congratulations. But 22 fields and Amateur Masters 70 plus. I honestly love to see that. Buzz Ryalis Clefane wins that one by 7 strokes. And an Amateur Masters Women 70 plus, Linda Voss. I'm sorry. Yeah, Linda Voss. I almost said Lydia, but it's Linda Voss. So congratulations to all of our Amateur Masters winners.
And overall amateur winners.
Yes, sorry. I threw Masters in there. All of our amateur winners.
Yeah, and Linda, Johnny, when you and I did attend the 2015 Amateur World Championship, she had won a division back then. I'm gonna go back and take a look. That's when the Worlds was in. She had won Advanced Senior Grand Masters Women back in 2015. That was back at in Michigan. If I could just spit it out, yeah. So she's got multiple-time world champion. Congratulations to her.
That's great.
Also, a relation to Danny Voss, who works with and part of the PDGA.
Yep.
That is Danny's mom, which is pretty exciting, pretty cool to see.
That is really cool to see. All right. So we're going to move over to our Silver Series event. And this one I have a little bit more experience with because I got to watch the final round when we were switching cameras. The Stafford Open out of Voorhees, New Jersey. Voorhees, my favorite murderer. Jason. So taking this one down in the MPO field, there was no questions. It was Matty O. He dominated the field. He won by 11 strokes over Nathan Queen. Matty O was 37 under. Nathan Queen was 26 under. Andrew Fish jumped up and I think off the third card by shooting a 12 under that last round for third place. Fourth place, Michael Joe. Fifth place, Justin Rozak. So Justin had a rough. It was, and when I say funny, I mean more ironic than funny. Haha. Justin, the first 2 rounds, had gone like 7 and 8 under on the back 9. So in the production room, we're feeding this information to the commentators. So for those of you that don't know, Terry doesn't have an original thought. We tell him what to say when he's commentating. So I want everyone to know that.
So that means if I say something dumb, we know where it comes from.
That's right. Right from Mo.
You guys.
So we're telling everyone, like, okay, the last 2 days, this guy's dominated the back 9, like 7 and 8 under par. That poor guy just, like, right when we hit hole number 10, he hit first available, and it didn't get any better. So, unfortunately, Justin Rozak shoots 3 over par on the back nine, where he was shooting 7 and 8 under par. Ended up shooting 2 under for the round. Just kind of fell off pace very quickly that way. Nobody was catching Matty O. Let me put it this way. Matty O was never, ever scared about losing this event, but Justin had a good chance to fight for second and unfortunately just couldn't get that back nine together. So those are your top 5 at the Stafford Open. The better competition, in my opinion, was in the FPO field, where we saw, going into the third round, Michelle Frazier was leading by, I believe, 1 or 2 strokes over Missy Gannon, Natalie Ryan, and Alex Benson, I believe, was all on the lead card. And then Holly Finley was on the chase card. Holly Finley had a really good first round, was in the lead after the first round, but had a rough second round and fell down to the second card. And Michelle Frazier just kind of, her front nine really kind of took her out of it. Had a triple bogey on 7 and a couple single bogeys and didn't get a lot of birdies until the back. And Missy Gannon was just relatively consistent on that round. She shot an even that round and ended up winning by 2 strokes over Natalie Ryan. Michelle Frazier tied for second with Michelle Frazier. Holly Finley jumped up a place into 4th place, and Alex Benson tied with Holly Finley in 4th place. I should look at the numbers before I start saying things, but I'm not going to have her do that. So anyway, so a 2-way tie for second and a 2-way tie for 4th, but ultimately Missy Gannon, probably the favorite going into the tournament. She ends up in the third round, able to seal the deal by just kind of being relatively consistent. She missed a few drives, but I mean, Missy she took control of the third round and never really looked back. So
okay, well, so a few follow-ups to that, because of course I was out filming the Rocky Mountain Women's. One note that was brought up to me after the fact, and actually talked about a little bit in our one of our meetings, is that the course, it seemed as if everybody liked the course, but was it on the shorter side? Is that why some things moved quickly? And
wow.
Obviously, is that what impacted our scores? Like what?
Yeah.
What's kind of the recap there?
Well, the breakdown of the Stafford is, it is, compared to the other elite level courses, it's relatively short and it's much more wooded. There's like 3 open holes where you can kind of unload. Other than that, it's relatively hit your gap. And there's a lot of 300-foot shots, especially in the FPO field. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 holes over 300 feet. The rest of them are under 300 feet, more or less, I think is what it looks like. So we have, it's a traditional, it feels like almost like a Wisconsin course, where you have to hit your gap. It's relatively wooded and you play fast. And on top of that, the card that we had with Michael Joe and Matty O, man, what a fast card. Nobody there was second guessing their lines. Nobody there was second guessing their throws. They waited on quite a few holes because the second card was kind of struggling with some of the shots. I think other than Nathan Queen, who, like I said, shot an 11 under, everybody else on that card was slowing us down. Let me put it that way, or going at a normal pace, as opposed to our card, which, Michael Joe, who half the time I was telling my cameraman, listen, I don't need the behind the shoulder shot with Michael Joe. Just steady up and get a shot, any shot, because if you try to get behind him, it's too late. He's thrown. Move on to the next player, because it's not worth it. Michael Joe gives 0 Fs about anything other than getting up, throwing, and turning around as fast as he can to not watch his disc finish. So, which I love personally about him.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the question though, and this is all in jest, but what if Michael Joe loses a disc and you're like, I'm not helping you look. You didn't even watch where it went. I'm not going to help you look. But it's funny that we talk about what seems like I don't want to say easy. And again, I watched exactly 0 minutes and 0 seconds of coverage, so I'm just reading off the numbers.
It's 12s and 13s
but
down.
But it's 8,200 feet. That's not short,
Nope.
so to speak. I mean, it's not the 10,000 feet we're seeing at a few of the other courses, but 8,200 feet. I mean, if you told me it was 5,400 feet, I'd be like, wow, yeah, they're playing a short track. This is by no means a short track. And I see on the FPO side, 77, basically 7,800 feet. Again, maybe not a lot of holes over 300 or yeah. I mean, I don't know. So
there's a handful, but the round went.
I'll have to
very
go back
fast.
and watch the coverage.
No, you won't. We started the round at like 12:30, and I believe we were off the course by like 4:30. And it helps that I think that the size of the field, and there was how many men? There was 75, 75 to 80 men, and
yeah.
And then an FPO.
Oh, well, yeah, there were about 20 FPO.
And there are 20 FPO. So, I mean, we were really flying with that.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, after you look at all the DNFs, especially most of them coming after round 2, you only had 74 open players on the course and 19 FPOs. That just in general keeps things moving along a little bit nicer as well. So,
which is why I'm going to flash back to last week, and we're going to go with when John runs the Pro Tour, all fields will be 74 or 72 people and no more.
And 5,400-foot courses. 300's the average hole length.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, that makes sense. I'd say, and you know what the funny thing is, I'd say, and none of them have fairways because that'd be more fun, but Kevin Jones would just throw over the tops of everything then. So we need to.
That's true.
Everyone's gonna have a triple Mando because I think it's the best course design.
Okay. Andy on the board is saying Stafford is similar to Fairfield in Round Lake. So thank you for the comparison. Okay.
Oh, well, thank you.
Good to know.
But ultimately, it was a good event. It was fun. Everyone got in, got out. I think there were a lot of DNFs on the second round because a lot of people were scared about the Hurricane Henri coming in, and we didn't see a drop of rain. It was kind of shocking. It was like this little New Jersey was this little pocket of no rain, and I don't know what happened when we turned the cameras off, but everybody stayed dry. And I was kind of shocked because considering in some places on the East Coast, they were getting hammered with rain.
I feel like because everyone is clamoring for the stay to play an extra day, I feel like they should have just canceled Sunday and then made everyone play on Monday. I mean, just because there was no bad weather, but we were predicting it. So, okay, maybe that's backwards, but I think it would be funny. All right, so there's one other topic that I saw, and I can only speculate, and I apologize, I've been super busy, so I didn't get more details, and it was brought up on the board, so I'll quickly bring it up. It sounded as if there was a scoring, I don't know if mishap's the word, I don't think atrocity is the word, but there was some kind of scoring scenario where I believe during round 2, and I think she's pretty public about it, Stacey Ronsley had made a post on Instagram, or at least within Instagram stories, saying that she ultimately her score got submitted incorrectly, and Emily had just asked it on the board about what that means for when you're confirming and double checking scores at the end of the round. Are opportunities given before they're fully submitted? I'm not pointing any fingers, and I'm not even going to go as far as speculating. I need to know more about exactly what unfolded. But it sounds like there's at least a conversation that could be had. And for those that don't know, at least from we'll say a PDGA app perspective, and I believe UDisc as well, at the end of the round, again, on the PDGA app, which I just used, it says before you submit the scores to be official, it gives you a little warning alert, and it says, double check your scores, and once these are confirmed, enter in your last name or your PDGA number. And that's in a world that's kind of like officially signing and then handing over the scorecard. That's essentially what that's doing. And it's very similar on the UDisc side. I guess the question becomes whether someone's assigned to you or someone within your group enters that information in and it hasn't been 100% confirmed. Like what's the play? What's the bigger picture? What's the adjustment or fix? Is there one? Because clearly I could just enter in your last name. I'd be like, oh, we're done with the round. You shot 63. You could be like, yeah, sounds good. And I just enter in your name or your PDGA number and it's officially done.
Which
do
brings
we
up
have to take this further? That like you have to hand over your phone and then that person should be entering in their own information? Like how do we combat this?
It brings up a really funny point because the one event that I played this year, which was the Wilderness, it had PDGA live scoring. I'd never done PDGA live scoring before because I play one event a year practically now. And I believe somebody else kept the score. And I had no clue. I just walked at the end of the round. I walked away. I was like, cool, you got my score? All right, adios. No one told me I had to sign anything. Finally, second round comes by, and I think I was doing PDGA scoring or something, and I went to finalize it, and I'm like, you need to sign this? And everyone's like, yeah, you got to and I'm like, oh, because I had no clue. I'd walked away. I just told everybody, like, yeah, that looks like my score. I think that matches what I have on UDisc, and that was it. And so somebody else must have submitted that for me and been done. So, which obviously being someone who doesn't do this very often right now and hasn't since the PDGA scoring app has become so popular, it's really interesting that clearly somebody signed for me to submit my ticket. So would I have any recourse if they had done it wrong? Now, from my perspective, no, because I kind of walked away and was like, adios, that's my own fault for not knowing. Now for Stacy, I don't know the recourse. Like, I don't know the situation. Was she not given an opportunity? Did someone say, a score and she agreed to it, so somebody just put her number in or her last name, and then without knowing all the details, it's very difficult to assign blame, so to speak, would be the word I guess I would use here. I don't know what your recourse is for. I mean, ultimately, everybody should know you have to sign the card. If you're not given that opportunity, then you go to the TD and tell them, hey, I didn't get a chance to sign my card. Somebody submitted it for me. I didn't get a chance. The TD at that point should, by all rights, be like, oh, okay, well, what was your score? And if it matches, cool, we're good to go. If it doesn't, the TD should change it or fix it.
Well,
but
and I understand where you're going, and
it's relatively quick.
Yeah, and that's where I would follow up and immediately say, let's, wait, and we're just postulating to make for an example's sake. You get done with the round. The second you're done with the round, you're like, oh, hey, I'm double parked. I got to get out. Like, you drop in your putt and you take off. And so you knowingly are I'll say abandoning, kind of like you did. Mm-hmm. You're just basically saying, hey, I got to go run and do something quick. I've got to go to the bathroom. I've got to go get in line for lunch. I got to do whatever. But you, so to speak, run off. Or, that I feel like is somewhat different because you're leaving it at the hands then of the people that were doing it, and you're abandoning it versus, another scenario where it's all but submitted. And like you said, you didn't even really have a chance to double check anything. I don't know. And again, I'm not specifically reflecting on Stacy's scenario because I don't know all the details, but it does pose a bigger question about, and it's really kind of funny because digital scoring took giant leaps forward in acceptance. I see Luke Butch is out there saying bring back paper scorecards. It took giant leaps forward in acceptance in the last year. And it's almost funny to be like, hey, we're doing this. This is also somewhat of a germ COVID precaution. But here, it's the end of the round. Here's my phone. Please touch it. Please enter in, whatever. If you're just thinking about it from a really specific angle, like, oh, yeah, here's the phone I held all round. And now I need the other three people to handle my phone and then punch in their number. I mean, how do we address that? I don't know.
I'm short of everybody having, I think UDisc you can keep your own score. I don't know if you can do it for Pro Tour events, but I know on a personal round, you can kind of combine scorecards. Everyone can keep their own, share them and stuff like that. So that's one way. I don't think the PDGA one is like that. I don't know for sure. I think one person at a time can only be on the PDGA one, from my understanding, because it's web-based.
Correct.
So there's that issue. But you could, if you really wanted to get, germy about it, and no offense, Coling, but you would, one person would have the card and you'd count it up and they'd log out. The next person could log in, verify it, log out. Another person could log in with their phone, verify it. You could do it that way. But that would be, that's a lot of extra effort. It just really depends on how serious you need to be about it. But yeah, as someone on our Twitch says, running a tournament with digital scorecards is so much easier. And my understanding, Terry, my understanding is digital scorecards were supposed to eliminate all scoring errors. That was the promise, and flying cars. That's what I heard.
Well, flying cars. Wait, digital scorecards eliminated flying cars, or they eliminated scoring? Wait, what are you trying to say?
We were promised flying cars. That's all I'm saying.
Here's, of course, digital scoring. You always need a backup. And you often see players to this day taking a paper scorecard as a backup. Sometimes it's voluntary and sometimes that's mandatory. But you see players will do that. They'll keep a paper scorecard just so they have a reference to check. And we all know that at the end of the day, you can't eliminate a scoring error if a score was entered incorrectly on the PDGA app. It's going to do the arithmetic correctly. But if someone on your card thinks you took a 6 and you really took a 5, but they entered you in for a 6, it still comes down to you going back and being able to verify or have something to cross-reference that. That's the main takeaway at that point. Of course, then even at that point, that person needs to be able to say, hey, my score equaled 54. I see, you're telling me you have 55. Let's figure out where the discrepancy is and what does that time frame look like. But those are all things that we have to certainly keep track of. I will say, though, from a tournament director's perspective, the few events I have run since the introduction of the scorecards, digital scorecards, it makes tournament directing, I don't want to say a million times easier. It certainly, in a lot of ways, reduces stress. It'll only continue to do that as people become more comfortable with it. And it speeds up almost every facet of your tournament. Mm-hmm. It definitely speeds things up for the first round if you're playing a 2-round event into the afternoon, and then in the afternoon, and then it also speeds up awards and how everything happens there. I have lots and lots. I have a whole shoebox full of paper scorecards that are all varying colors to be used in a scoreport. And if it takes me till the day I die, I'll find a way to use those because they're already pre-printed and pre-cut. But not shuffling around a board feels pretty damn good, I got to tell you. So
now you just like the old school, pain. Like the old school, you need to bring along a flat screen TV, put it up, hook your laptop up to it so everyone can see the scores. I remember how awesome
advanced
we thought it was when we saw that at some events, some of the bigger events. Like you'd walk up and there would be a TV with scrolling scores. And you're like, you'd sit there and stare at it and wait for your score to come up like, there I am. I had to wait a long time because it was scrolling. Yeah. But either way, we thought that was super cool. Now everyone has a TV in their pocket. So
yeah,
get off my lawn, kids.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So again, I'm gonna actually investigate a little bit more. Not that I'm writing a report. I just want to know what had happened in full frame. I want to fully know and understand what happened, and then from there, I think that's the question and the conversation that needs to be had is where do we go from here? How can we prevent things like that from happening in the future? And if there's a way, you and I both know. You can have all the guidelines, all the steps, all the rules and regulations in place, but at the end of the day, if somebody or someone missteps, certain things are just purely unavoidable and can't be adjusted. So we'll see. All right, so that's what we saw for a couple of the events.
Oh, I got
Go ahead.
one more event. The Finnish Nationals 2021. We're talking overseas here, real quick. Terry, you might have to correct my. It's being out of Oulu, Finland. Do you know that one? Oulu. I'm gonna go with Oulu. Oulu, Finland.
I'll go with that.
And I want to bring this up because it was a relatively large event. It had 104 open. Väinö Mäkelä wins this one by a single stroke over Daniel Davidson. And this was live streamed for those of you that may have caught it. I didn't realize it was going to be. I think I saw Schwebby make a post about it, and I hopped on right away because this was the European Pro Tour, as we know, is going to be doing live streaming next year. This was kind of their little introduction. This was, I don't want to call it a test event, but probably an event that they weren't charging for. It was free on YouTube, and they were maybe working out some of the kinks. And so we got to see some live disc golf, and I reached out to them today, and I said, hey, awesome job. I watched a little bit of it, and when I saw you guys looked like you had like 6,500 concurrent viewers. That's great. He's like, actually, at the end of the round, we had 9,000. And I said, wow. And, most of it was in Finnish. I think I was, at one point, the only chatter in English. And I think I threw 2 or 3 comments out there, but I didn't see any other English chatter. So if this side of the pond was watching, they were not chatting. They were not keeping up. But I was very impressed. The coverage looked good. You could tell that, their cameramen weren't quite as adept at doing some of the stuff that our guys are right now, but it's a first event. So, and trust me, if you watched the coverage this weekend of the Stafford Open, you probably were yelling and screaming a little bit as well, because that was not our most bright and shining moment in spots. But I was very happy. Great graphics, which they look like they pulled from UDisc as well. And overall, just a really good start. I reached out, and he said 9,000 plus. They said they got a lot of subs for starting for next year. So if you do want to go out and sub, I think go to Disc Golf Stream, and I think it's $100 for a year or something. So go out, give them some subs, watch more disc golf. Is all I can say. More live disc golf. It'll make everybody better. Competition is always good. But I want to talk real quick about the Open Women in that field. Henna takes this one down over Evelina by 9 strokes. It really feels like Evelina right now is kind of struggling. She's hit a valley in her game. She shot a 952, 932, 974, 969. She's having some putting issues, not surprisingly, with what she's talked about. But Henna, 991, 955, 957, 993. So just putting together some really, really solid rounds for the win. So congratulations to Henna in the victory over the other 19 women.
As you were just saying, 20 FPO competitors and 104 on the men's side. So very cool to see. Like you just mentioned, congratulations, Väinö as well as Henna. All right. I am looking down the list. Quick shout out, Jay Santos and Patrick Lowry, both jumping in and hopping on the Super Chat train. So thank you guys. We appreciate that very much. Andy Cap, holy cow. I mean, I'd like to say this isn't a contest, but it kind of is. And I'd like to see who's going to be the winner tonight. So right now we got a couple of front runners, but thank you to all of you guys who have been jumping in and getting on board with that. We appreciate that. All right. Someone else, Daniel, saying that maybe Evelina had specifically one spot where she had given up a number of strokes on the putting green. So, all right. Well, hopefully she can get that worked out and get that adjusted. Before we cut into the after show, you mentioned earlier some names and I guess a quick conversation about some of the families that we see in disc golf. And of course, not just in the last year, but overall, we see a number of families that fully embrace disc golf. And then was it posed this weekend as to if you're looking at just sheer numbers of players? Who do we see as, ultimate disc golf families?
Yeah,
Is
some of
that the kind of the way it was posed?
I think just with Michelle Frazier playing so well, she's a name that you and I have known for a while, and with her family. But every once in a while, she pops up on the national scene, like she did this weekend. I had mentioned how there's quite a few of the Fraziers that play, and I believe it was Charlie maybe that had posed the question to Dana, or no, maybe it was to Christine actually, about who are some of the biggest disc golf families, like actual, not Frisbee family, as we jokingly say, but actual families that play. And right away, as we had said, the Schultzes come to mind, Silas and Thunder and Esther. Oh, God, there's like three more that I...
Simeon.
Thank you. That was the one I was missing, but I know there's even more.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I had said, the Frazier girls, I think there's three of them and their parents. They play. I thought there was a brother, but maybe I'm wrong in that. Maybe it's just the three girls.
If so, they hide him well, because I don't think I've met him.
Maybe he doesn't play. I don't know. But yeah, the Frazier girls, we used to jokingly call it the Frazier invasion when they would, when we'd see them all, because they traveled together to tournaments here in the Midwest, and we'd see them. Obviously, the Millers now, Terry, you're bringing along two girls. So
I don't think that quite.
No. So
doesn't quite hold up. And
so who
I was just going to say that
we have?
Well, and this also can be sparked by the conversation. PDGA had put up this tweet, so full credit to them, at the M Worlds, and we had read this gentleman off, the Mowens Hamilton family. The dad had taken down the MA60 division. The mom had taken down they mistakenly put that. The dad took down MA60. The mom took down FA60, and their typo got me screwed up.
We'll edit this out.
Dad took first in MA60. No, we won't. Dad took first in MA60. Mom took fourth in FA60, and the daughter took second in FA1. So a solid performance, of course, as we called a few of them off much more eloquently than I just did there. But three competitors all almost finding podium spots at the AM Worlds. That's pretty impressive. We talked about the Kashrita sisters. I've seen them dominate. Alexis and Valerie both play. Their parents, I believe, play occasionally, but not to the level that we see them. You have to talk about the Rico family, Bamba, Steve, and then, of course, their nephew, along with their dad that, had got them into playing. Of course, the Jenkins family, Sharon and Leroy, along with Val and Avery. And there's a lot of other ones out there. But when you start thinking about, I know the conversation always then finds a way over to like who is the best combo, brother-sister combo, or ratings, or brother-brother combo. Of course, when you talk about the Sextons, Colin and Nate, there's a lot of different ways you could spin all those conversations into, but it's certainly pretty cool to see, so much more of a family affair. And we've got the amazing Gardner family out there, Cody and Emily, and they say that their 2-year-old also gets out there and throws around. So yeah, some of those are, quite established and well known. And I think we're going to see more of that. I think that's maybe something that's really exciting. Is I think we're not far away from seeing, sheer dominance of any given family that gets in early. A bunch of them play. They continue to shape and mold their game, and then all of their siblings continue to move through the ranks as well. And I think you see a little bit of that, of course, over on the Schultz side. But I think you're going to see that in more families as more people are taking to disc golf that much earlier.
Yeah, my understanding is Heather Young has some sisters that all play, and because they all picked a color at one point. I mean, did I hear there was 4 or 5 total sisters?
There's
4.
I think there's 4. I think Heather has 3 other sisters. Okay. And then they all have various colors, and that's how they were able to keep track of who owns what disc was what. They all had picked various colors that they roll with. So Yeah, obviously, as they're saying, the Earhart brothers, and Ulibarri's, Paul and Pete. Yeah, again, we could go on and on without going down this rabbit hole, but yeah, I think those will continue to grow and thrive.
Simon with his two sons, Eagle and Kyle. I mean,
I don't know who calls who daddy there, but that's a good place for us to call it a night. I think what we could do is we could cut out of the regular show, then we can come back, give you guys a little after show action, and go from there. You good with that, Johnny?
I'm great with that, Terry.
Wait, do we have a super chat winner yet? No, not yet.
They'll have to go into playoff holes in the after show.
We'll see what can happen there. All right, guys, we're going to call it for the regular show. This has been podcast number 365. Huge shout out to Sandra and the entire Rocky Mountain Women's Disc Golf Club or crew that put on the event. As I mentioned, I'm going to continue to gush for years about how great of a job they do out there. You have to get out to that event. You have to get to Purple Park and experience that hospitality and the treatment that they provide. It's really second to none. Congratulations to all the other winners at AM Worlds, Stafford Open, all the other events that took place this last weekend. We're super excited to be back at it this upcoming week as we're going to bring you some of the action from the national tour on our Elite Series out of Delaware. So for Johnny V and myself, again, podcast 365, stick around for the after show. We'll give you more action. The lights are going to change colors here. Oh, yeah, things are going to get wild. We'll see you in a moment when you step inside the Smashbox.
Thank you to our $2 and above patrons. Your name is listed below in the credits. If you are interested in being listed as a producer in the Smashbox TV credits and supporting this and other fine podcasts, please visit patreon.com/SmashboxTV.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Smashbox TV's 365's After Show. Is there a little delay between us tonight?
Well, we're not in the same spot, so by physics, I think that there has to be probably maybe 100, 150 milliseconds between us.
Huh. Let me get my ruler out. How far is 150 milliseconds? No? Not far. All right. Welcome, everyone.
I'm sorry, 443 milliseconds right now between us.
Wow. All right. Well, welcome, everyone. This, of course, is the Smashbox TV After Show. Sometimes we like to talk about disc golf-related items. Sometimes we ramble on about pop culture, news, other sports, other things that may or may not interest, or stupid rants and tangents that have entered our lives. We also love to double check what's coming in off of the YouTube or Facebook or Twitch message boards. So if you have something for us that you'd like for us to answer directly or address or bring up or have a conversation about, please type it into the chat board. If it's really good, I'll steal it and pass it off as if it was my own original thought.
That's part of the deal of being on the chat. So Terry,
it is. It is.
Do you realize that you very well probably will never step foot in this studio again.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just
Well,
saying, like, because I debated whether we were going to do next Tuesday night here or at the new place, but I think I'm just going to pack everything up when we have when we move on Monday, and kind of get everything set up in the basement Monday night, at least this part. Tuesday, the internet gets put in at the new place, and we might just kind of do like a temp studio from the basement of the new house, and well, you'll probably never come back here. But
well,
you can keep the key and just scare the new owners. Just show up on a Tuesday night.
Idea. Or I'll wait till they go to work. Oh shoot, I think they're going to probably work out of your house or their house, your old house, maybe. Anyway, I'll wait for them to get all their equipment or anything else that they might have in there, and then maybe I'll just show up with my own key. Yeah, and we'll have to talk, and we can throw this out to the world right now, that maybe even there's a question about Tuesday night show specifically, because Wednesday, I don't know if it's morning or afternoon, I actually travel to the Boston area to get prepped for the MVP. And so a thought that could be entertained is the idea, depending on when I'm getting there, is would it make sense to postpone our podcast until Wednesday night and then have an on-site guest, somebody that's at the MVP Open? I'm just spitballing. That might be an idea. Or interestingly enough, we could even postpone it to Thursday night as well. But anyway.
Yeah. Do it from the SAP house?
Something like that. Or I guess
maybe someplace quieter.
Decide what the internet connection and all of the powers that be. Yeah, anyway, so those are some things that if at 9:06 next week you don't see us, there's a good chance that you may see us Wednesday night or Thursday night. Let's put it that way.
We'll try to let everyone know on social media.
Yeah, of course we will, but I'm just throwing that out there. I am going to read a few notes from the board. Jay is going to get read first because Jay was one of our gracious super chatters. He said his playing disc golf is really so demanding on a young person body that these top level pros should be complaining about playing 4 weekends in a row. I'll quickly jump on that and say, I don't know if it's so much about the first of all, it's 4 weekends in a row, sure. I think on top of that, though, when you start to really break down what a week and weekend looks like for them, you're talking about playing each of those 4 days, but then you're probably talking about the following day being a rest/travel day. I don't know if getting in a vehicle and traveling 8 hours, maybe or maybe not stressing out about, your RV that's getting pulled, or doing 50 miles an hour in a 70-mile-an-hour, highway for 8 hours, if that's relaxing, so to speak. But let's just say you have that travel day anywhere from 2 to 4 to 6 hours on Monday. By Tuesday, you're out on the course. You're probably playing, maybe you're just playing one course that week, but that really just gives you Tuesday and Wednesday to potentially dial in, or Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe Thursday to dial in the course. You're probably throwing multiple shots, and who knows what the weather is like, or the conditions are like, and then you're right back at it come Friday. Now, I am not suggesting that for a 23-year-old that's too much or not enough. I can't make that decision, but just don't downplay what goes into a typical week for some of these players. And I think occasional weekends of back-to-back is one thing. I think when you do put together 4 out of 5 weeks or 6 out of 7 weeks, and you're talking about that physical and mental strain, I think it does add up. And you're also, keep in mind, these guys aren't playing a course like you're probably playing at your house, or better yet, at your local park. You're probably playing a 5 or 6, maybe a 7,000 foot course. These guys are practicing and playing 9, 10, 11, 12,000 foot courses on the regular, and then they're throwing that much harder, exerting themselves that much more often. So those are all things to consider. Now, take all that stuff I just spewed out and you can arrive at your own conclusion. But I do want people to at least recognize and think it's so much more than just playing 3 rounds of golf on the weekend.
And I'll throw in there, as I always do, they ain't got to play every weekend. No one's forcing them.
Absolutely.
I've said before, I think
totally agree.
You know, you can kind of complain about the schedule, but no one's forcing you to play every weekend. And I get that it's tough, that the Pro Tour drops events. Silver Series are worth a quarter of the points. And, look at what Eagle's doing. Eagle's not playing every weekend. Eagle's playing the events that he can. And he has the luxury of doing that. I get that. But if you want to have longevity in the sport, I think it's on you to take it easy. There's a reason why pitchers don't pitch every day. There's a reason why NBA players usually won't play the full time, 80 games? Like, everybody needs rests.
Yep.
Everybody needs time off. And just because there's an event out there doesn't mean you have to play it. So,
I mean, NFL players only play like freaking 17 weekends a year. 17 days, not even just weekends, days. I mean, come on,
days.
How lazy are they?
But I do think that next year we'll see, I don't know if it's a foregone conclusion yet what's going to happen with the national tour. I don't know if anything's been announced or anything's been talked about. But my guess is that we're going to see some sort of consolidation. It's been talked about for years. And if so, we're going to lose some events. Or those aren't going to be broadcast live. Or players are going to have to make a decision, because you're not going to take the 12 DGPT events plus the 6 national tour events. Something's going to have to give. Then you have 4 majors next year, plus whatever extra... and then maybe, and who knows, I know Silver Series are always different, but this year we had 6 Silver Series events. And then you've got a match play, you've got, AM Worlds, you've got, Pro Masters Worlds, you've got the European trips, hopefully, cross our fingers next year. You've got like the celebrity event that they're hoping to put on. Something's got to give. And that might be a couple national tours or Pro Tour spots next year aren't on the tour next year. Or if they are, they're kind of relegated, so to speak, if you want to talk soccer language. And you and I were joking in the chat about this particular weekend, the Delaware Open Challenge, Delaware Challenge. I don't know what the heck it's called, but that's how much I care about it. Like, this event just doesn't seem like it's getting, I don't know if it's the respect. I don't know if it's the attention. It just doesn't feel like a elite level event to me. I mean, it doesn't seem like it's getting a lot of hype. I think people are way more excited for the 2 events right after that. You've got Maple Hill and Green Mountain, which are 2 of the most loved events in the entire year by players and spectators. We've seen a few players drop out of this weekend and not play to get ready for this big, long stretch. Because right after that, you've got like the Music City, or the match play, and then the Music City, and then USDGC, and then the Pro Tour finale. It's a long season. And to me, this Delaware event, I know we're going to be covering all 3 days. It's going to be live. Everyone's going to put forth 110%, but it feels like a Silver Series to me. And I don't mean that to be insulting. I just think that it's not, I mean, it just doesn't feel like an elite level event. And that's not based on how it's going to be run. That I'm not saying anything about how it's going to be run. It hasn't been run yet. I don't know. But the attention and the focus and the players, that's where I'm seeing where it's being overshadowed. And I think in the past, Andrew Fish, I'll give him credit for this, had said that the PDGA has done a poor job in the past, quote unquote, protecting this event, because it has been so close to Worlds the past few years that many players just skipped it to go to Worlds, that it wasn't given the respect. And that's part of this, is that it doesn't have a history of of these great rounds that are being shot that everyone's excited for. You know, the course itself, I think, it's a very difficult course, but I can't think of a single like standout hole. I know there's one hole that was it last year somebody eagled. It's a par 5 maybe. I don't know, but they just I don't know. I think it's all kind of bunches up on this particular event, unfortunately, because they put on, from my understanding, is a pretty darn good event. It's overshadowed.
Yeah, and I'll interject and just state that it's going to be a well-run event that's got a lot of heart and soul and love put into it. It'll have a great payout. Everything about it's going to be great. A part of your personal bias or lack of enthusiasm is because you've never been there, and it's one of the few places you haven't been. You've been to and have intimate experience with almost every single other event that we have, and so I know deep down that there's a little bit of you that had you ever attended in either media or a competitive capacity, you'd feel a little different about it, and I can say that from experience. I always knew of the event, heard of the challenge, but until I went there and filmed for a couple of years and did some post-production on it, I didn't have the respect and value that it truly deserves. And that was just because I physically wasn't there. Because when we think of disc golf, you know, we think of these pockets around the country, we think of all these amazing courses and these high-level events. And then Delaware, just I think sheerly because of its size and its lack of famed players, although there's of course a handful that are very good, so it's no slight there. I just think you don't think of it that way, and if you at any point would be present for one of them, you would have a slightly different opinion. But I still understand where you're going and what you're trying to say. But yeah, it's an incredible track, and it's super demanding and challenging. The players love the course. There's no doubt about that. And everything they do very well there. It's just, to me, it is a little bit more of the timing. It's people, as you said, getting ready for the next couple of weekends, people coming off of a very long stretch. And now if you ever want to mentally relax, this is the weekend to do it, because this course is mentally taxing. So you're like, hey, I could kind of use a break. I kind of want to rejuvenate. So if there's one place to do it, you're thinking, wow, that's probably the best weekend I could possibly take off, is not going to that event, because that's going to be probably one of the most mentally taxing events of the whole year anyway. So I think that's where we're positioned, and that's exactly what's happening. Now, with that said, you know, as you were saying all that, I mean, there's 116 total players. There's 90 open players. There's 90 open players. I'm scrolling down, and more than half of them are 1,000 rated and above. So it's an incredibly deep and talented field. And there's 28 FPO players, which is also a sizable FPO field. And we have a ton of great players there. We are missing, well, it shows on here that Paige is there, and I'm unconfirmed whether or not Paige is playing, but we have the best of the best in terms of women that are playing there. So there's no fair or legitimate slight to any of it. I think it just comes down to the timing of it.
I think if you
more than anything,
if you take this event and course and you move it to May, June, maybe even July, but in July we're starting to get more to the Midwest stuff. You move this to a April or May or June event, I think it's loved. I definitely think it's loved, because it would be so different than what we've seen. But the problem is, again, we're going into these courses that are beloved, and this course is liked, but I can't say nobody. Very few of your pros, when you say, hey, tell me your top 5 courses, this one's not on it, because it's so mentally taxing. It's so long. It's so difficult. It's not a beautiful course. It's wooded. Traditionally beautiful, green, lush fairways, it's got a lot of trees. It's a really long course with a lot of trees. Like, it just, and again, I've never been there. I've only seen it on tape. So, and by when I say tape, that's how old I am. I literally, I think Terry
Yes.
Terry took a VHS for me at one point and showed it to me.
Yeah, yep, just put it right in. I took the VHS and I put it right into the video camera, and then I set it up on my shoulder like this, and I was like,
"Look at this, Johnny." I just and again, I think the event maybe is getting a little slighted because of a lot of that. And I mean, I don't know. Maybe this event this weekend puts on a phenomenal show. We have players, goes into a playoff, and James Conrad throws in a 280-foot shot for the win. I don't know. That could change perspectives on this. But I'll be honest when I say I am not personally excited to cover this event because I don't know the course extremely well. I know it's heavily wooded. It's probably going to be like 7-hour rounds, and I'm just there's nothing exciting about this for me right now personally.
All right. I think you're fired then.
What was that?
Nothing. Well, I'm excited.
Good, you have to be. You're commentating.
Well, I've been there, and I know what this course offers. And you're right; they're going to be long. They're going to be challenging and demanding rounds. But I am excited to see how these guys navigate through it. It's also like we were just saying about the timing, though. People are lining up knowing Maple Hill's right around the corner. It's almost like, I guess it kind of feels like, hey, someone's offering you this medium size ice cream cone or chocolate malt, and you're like, yeah, but if I just wait a few days, I'm going to get an extra large malt. And you're like, yep. And they're like, wow, I'm going to wait for that. That's, so it's a good thing. And then there's another good thing right behind it. You just have to know that some people are kind of playing their rest and their relaxation and so on and so forth. So we'll see. I mean, it's got an incredible field, as we were just saying, Wysocki, Heimberg, Dickerson, Orem, Hammes, Conrad, blah, blah. I'm not going to read all the top players, but incredible field there. And then, like we said, on the FPO side, Allen, Holcomb, Young, Weiss, Panis, Holly Finley, Alex Benson. So there's no shortage of competition, and there's going to be no shortage of challenge out there. So looking forward to it. All right. Daniel says, I love watching wooded golf. Yeah, some days, let's be fair, watching it can be better than playing it. That's for sure. If they're playing it well.
Yeah, I love watching wooded golf. What I don't, but to me, it's almost like there's a limit to wooded golf, and I'm hoping maybe I'll go back and maybe I'll take a look at some of the previous coverage before the round so I get a better idea of the course, because that always does help when you're directing camera guys and stuff, like camera ops, for all this stuff. But like a 780-foot long wooded hole a lot of times does nothing for me, because you watch guys kiss a tree on each side and everybody's spread out everywhere and it takes forever and people are chunking through woods. Some people love to watch that. I personally hate it. Like, I love to watch wooded golf, but there's even a limit to what my love of watching wooded golf is.
Well, I mean, we all know, of course, we'd love to watch the best players throw the best shots, because clearly, if we rewind at any point, you could say, well, I really don't enjoy watching the super wide fairways and the openness of, courses X, Y, and Z earlier in the year. And now here we are in the other extreme. We're in the wooded side, and you can't complain about that side too. Like,
no, yeah. Like a 780, I'm just looked at like hole number 3, which is long. 780, or that's 760. Hole 5 is 780. Sorry. 80-foot wooded shot, I think, could be awesome on the right course. I don't want an entire course of that. Period. Like, I don't want an entirely really difficult, heavily wooded course. Like, to me, that, and I hope the course surprises me. I'll take a look. I'm going to watch some apparently Gatekeeper footage from last year. So,
watch. I covered FPO during the national tour the last couple of the years.
And how was that?
There's some action.
Was that
for
fun?
You.
Was it a good FPO course?
Yeah. It absolutely was.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Because sometimes they're not. Sometimes we've watched.
Oh, no, of course, yeah.
and the course doesn't necessarily set up properly for FPO. And I didn't watch your coverage, Terry. I know I watch it all, but I must have missed that one. And so I'll take a look. Yeah, it's 10,585 feet. That's what this course is.
Okay.
Is there one hole, because I don't know the course very well, where they can truly open up and throw a wide open shot?
A wide open shot. Hole 3.
Okay.
If I'm thinking of the holes correctly, hole 3, 2, 3 comes to mind.
Because every time I've seen footage of Iron Hill, again, it's like, okay, cool. You have to throw like a 30-foot fairway, 780 feet, and then there's like 1 or 2 trees in the middle that you have to miss about 400 feet down the fairway, because they're not off the fairway, they're in the fairway, which, fine, whatever, that's what it is. But again, those are great holes in...
So you want wooded golf, but not all wooded golf.
Yes.
Is that what you're trying to spit out?
Yes, I want a nice variety course. So I will go back.
I mean, not every course can be the beast down in Waco. You know that, right? Not every course can do that.
Or Idlewild. I love Idlewild because I think Idlewild is a very good mix. I think Idlewild has great shots. That's just recency bias. I think that's great. I liked Stafford because it didn't feel long. I thought it was a good course that didn't feel long. I know it's still 8,000 plus feet, but it didn't, you had guys that were getting 2s, and 2s are fun. 2s are a different pressure than 4s and 5s.
Yeah.
If there's more than one hole in your course where you walk off with a 5 and you're happy with it, it's probably too much.
Wow. All right. Well, we'll see how things continue, how things shake out. This is the second to last stop on the PDJ National Tour. Of course, the last stop being the Music City, which will be at the end of September. There's the continued conversation is, where the National Tour is, what the National Tour means. And I know you kind of alluded to that earlier, but this year, that's what we're going to see. This is the second to last stop with Music City next month. So I'm happy that we've got an Elite Series event that's covered on the network, and excited to be calling the shots out there. All right, we're going to move on from Johnny's complaining, pre-event complaining, and look at a few other things out there. Patrick says, how do you think autographed disc golf sport cards would do? I don't know if you're talking about necessarily like the Disc Golf Pro Tour cards.
I've got a whole bunch of the
signed. We've said it.
Yeah, I got a whole bunch of the Pro Tour ones signed from year 1. I had a couple sets, and one of them I put in sleeves, and one of them I went to GBO a couple years ago and just had. If I saw somebody who had a card, I had them sign it. So I have a not a fully signed collection, but I'd say like maybe a quarter of the players, and that I have them signed.
Yeah, it's we've said it countless times. It's funny that within the disc golf realm and community right now, an autograph on a disc typically either makes the disc hold value or even lose value, but rarely, if ever, does it increase in any value. And that's, I think, somewhat unique to our industry. I know there's other industries that kind of have a similar mentality, but we also just, our accessibility to the pros is so much different here, and maybe that'll change at some point. When it's tough to get an autograph from a pro, then maybe we'll see some of that change, but tough to say on the Disc Golf Pro Tour cards. Are we going to see other cards outside of those ever become popular? Maybe.
I think you could.
That's a whole nother realm. Yeah, I think you could, but that's a whole nother realm. That
once I open my NFT business and...
Well, yeah. Once you do that.
Yeah.
Tim says, no Hall of Fame Classic. No, that is not an event on the national tour. I think that was incredibly I'll say not only taxing, but more so, I think it was a matter of most years or some of the years when it was held at the IDGC. It was really put on by the IDGC staff largely, and a number of those people, and all of those people also have full-time jobs that are not just about running that tournament. And so I don't know that we're going to see it return in that same capacity in the future or not. I don't believe so, but maybe we'll see something come back as a B tier, or maybe even something more of a true Hall of Fame weekend, which is maybe that's where our Hall of Fame inductees are then put into the Hall of Fame, and it's an event, but the event is almost secondary to the Hall of Fame activities. That's just a possible guess. I'm not sure about that. Ray says Terry forgot to change his lamp color. I didn't. I just didn't want to walk back there, but I should have. Prices tanking everywhere. Oh, you guys are talking a little bit about
the NFTs.
World.
I jokingly asked if NFTs are still kind of a thing. You know, they went through their hot streak a couple months ago, and I don't know if there's still like a big market for them. They've fallen off the news cycle, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they've fallen off of actual value and such. I just don't hear about it anymore. So I was kind of just asking on the board, and some people, and Matthew Gilbert had said that prices are tanking everywhere. So I don't know.
Yeah, and like Federico says, I know there's still a thing. We realize that, and I think they'll continue to be.
Yeah.
I think it's just like a lot of crypto related stuff. I think it's going to be tough to figure out when the volatility simmers down, and then where the real value will shake out for any of those things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like the idea of some of them in very unique and creative ways, and in other ways, I think people are going to lose big time on what they feel like is a big cash grab. So I guess we'll have to see. However, headlines this last week, just cryptocurrency in general, getting pretty hot and heavy. Is that what you've seen, Johnny? Have you seen or heard that or read that?
I have. I saw my tiny little Bitcoin portfolio shoot way up over the last couple of weeks. So, I mean, hop on board.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
and this is not financial advice. Full disclosure, never put in more than you can afford to lose, and this is for entertainment purposes only and not financial advice. I think that's the official disclaimer. We have to say that now, Johnny.
No, actually, my disclaimer is put everything you own into Smashbox, into patreon.com/SmashboxTV. That is where you're going to get your best return on investment.
Yeah, I mean, you could win anywhere from $0 to like $40 worth of stuff every year. And then some, actually.
Almost every other week, if you really. I mean, we don't do back-to-back, but come on.
Yeah, that's true. And Federico is, in fact, out there. Hope you're doing well. I saw the picture with you and Dinko over in Croatia. He says we can now, he's here, we can now have our giveaway for the night. All right. I'm going to try and read down a few more of the detail, or a few more of the notes here. People talking about more discs and just the availability, I'd say, of discs. I don't know that things have gotten any better. I know that all of the manufacturers still seem to be backlogged, is really the only update I can give there.
Did you see the article that was posted on MVP's Labs, or I think I saw it posted on Reddit, that they are saying that they've sold more of the James Conrad commemorative discs than they sold of all of their discs in 2019?
Okay, I believe it.
They didn't give any specific numbers, but just in general, more of the Conrad discs in the last month and a half. That's about Worlds was a month and a half ago? 2 months, something like that? I don't know.
2 months ago.
2 months ago.
2 months ago, almost to the day.
Then MVP sold in all of 2019 with all of their discs. And they're a growing company. They've tripled or 10 times their capacity over the last couple of years, but still, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's insane. And
that's one disc, one commemorative disc.
Yeah, well, I might be responsible for 100 of those. I don't remember how many I bought, but I certainly picked up a bunch, and I'm super excited to have them.
Yeah, well,
once
I'll
they become available.
I'll buy one or two from you.
Yep, double retail.
I'll reach out to MVP.
I gotta
Steve.
make that money.
MVP Steve.
Yeah, he won't sell you any. Pre-orders are closed, bro. All right.
I'm not asking.
Adam says
I'm not asking to buy them. I'm telling that guy to send me some. Send me free stuff, MVP Steve. Free stuff.
Adam asks, is it a backlog of supplies to make the disc, or just can't physically keep up with the machinery they have? It's a little bit of both, Adam, from what I've understood. And a few of the manufacturers that I've talked to in some capacity, I think it's a little bit of both. Plastics have not only gone up in price, but also become more difficult to get a hold of the pellets and some of the fillers and some of the things that go into the plastics. And then it's just a sheer production issue of time, of the disc come off the line and they're instantly boxed and already spoken for or pre-ordered or back ordered or whatever, and they're shipped out instantly. Like, they cannot run enough discs on enough machines quick enough to keep up with the demand. And so it's a little bit of both from what you're asking.
Andy Cap asks, what's a better signing, Macbeth to Discraft or Conrad to MVP? And I'm still going with Macbeth. I think Macbeth has he flat out turned around a company, and he gave them the financial weight to be able to kind of become a monster in our industry right now, being able to sign Paige Pierce after that. And just in general, Macbeth helped turn around Discraft's entire perception in our sport. And Conrad to MVP, clearly phenomenal. It's a different scale, though. Like, it's a different size. You know, Conrad is, I guarantee you, whatever Conrad's making on these discs, or how many ever discs that MVP is selling, it's still a drop in the bucket compared to what Discraft is selling. Like, it's just, you know, and I love the guys in MVP, but, you know, again, it's all about scale. For MVP, if you want to look at it that way, maybe Conrad was bigger because it boosted them percentage-wise larger than maybe Discraft did, but it's hard for me to say that the Macbeth signing by Discraft wasn't probably the best move in our sport in the last 20 years.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously this is so subjective, and
Yes.
and even if you had the hard numbers of both companies and what's been a result, there's still some long-term subjectivity to it that can't necessarily be put on paper. Obviously, as the world would agree, both of them turned out to be incredibly fortuitous.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the word?
Yeah, both are great signings.
For both. Yeah, of course. And, you know, they have different impacts in different ways. MVP, like you mentioned, just at scale was a much smaller company that now gained so much more notoriety. And you have to say, well, how many new customers did they gain? Or just even the sheer brand awareness that they have gained, you know, collectively from a result of this, as opposed to Discraft, who has been around forever, has been, you know, in the space forever, but got a significant booster shot in the arm and or in the leg or in the hip or wherever you get.
Don't get political
shot.
Here, Terry.
I knew I was gonna somehow drag this in. No, I'm not. But yeah, I mean, both were huge, and we could argue all day. It would be cool to see some hard numbers go to some true marketing experts, and then outside of our sport, and then have them break it down in some kind of cool, like, you know, mini documentary or something, or you know, business case breakdown. But
it might almost be too soon to tell for MVP, because as we know,
yeah.
like, James, let me put it this way, as someone put on the board, like, what if James doesn't keep up? James is going to be probably a top 10 player for the next 5 or 7 years. he will be significant, especially as we get to the more wooded courses. I think that's where he feels his comfort zone usually. And I don't think we're going to see any sort of fall off from James Conrad in the long run. But we have already seen 3 years with Macbeth at Discraft. Is that right? It's 3 years?
Something like that.
And I mean, he went from a $1 million signing to over 4 years to $1 million a year signing. And that's just him. So he quadrupled his value, not to mention what he's doing for the company. We already know that that's going to be a relatively, I would think, long-term investment for Discraft that's going to pay off. At least that's the bet they're making. So, unless we find out Macbeth is a horrible person somehow, which I've been around the guy and he's not, I don't see that investment deteriorating over the next few years. I don't know what James is going to do. It's too early. He's only been on MVP for less than a year. So I think he'll be fine for the next 4 or 5 years. But James isn't as big of a game changer as Macbeth, in my opinion. But you're right. I'd love to see some hard numbers based on size of business versus, ROI and profits and, projected sales over the next X amount of years. And there's a lot there that you could break down.
Yeah, and there's a lot to unpack that not only do we not know those details, but, their overall situations and agreements are different. We're seeing that Paul has helping develop 4 or 5 molds. He's going to continue to do things like that, have his own line. And then, just the fact that indirectly there's the foundation that he has started and is tied to, that has other implications that, are hard to measure. I mean, there's just so many other ways to look at it. But all right, we're going to move on from that and say, Neil says, wow, the last disc he bought was the Innova Aero. So, I mean, sounds like you're keeping up with the times. I like to hear that, Neil. That sounds like a good way to do it. Daniel says the last disc I bought was a Ledgestone Cyclone. So
right around the same era,
a
Cyclone and an Aero. Yeah. Way to go, guys.
Yeah.
What's old is new again.
I feel like there were a whole bunch. I'll just quickly read them, even though you usually do this if it pops up easy enough for me. It says some new disc approvals. Oh, wow. Maybe I shouldn't. The Triremni from Albatross disc, the Ironclad, the Jet Ski, the Bow Rider, all approved discs from Albatross Disc Golf. Sorry. Trireme, the Trireme? Am I just flat out missing how that's pronounced?
Spell it again.
Trireme.
Trireme, maybe?
Trireme. I'm not trying to discourage anyone from sponsoring or supporting our podcast or our coverage or my post-production or any other way. But if I can throw out one quick tip,
it's a boat.
I'd love a name you can for sure pronounce.
It's pronounced Trireme. It's
Trireme.
I assumed it was some sort of boat based on all the names of the discs that you.
I got that.
And it's a boat.
Word I've never heard in my life.
No, because it's an ancient style boat. It's a Greek or Roman boat with all the oars and stuff that people stroke. So yes, you would recognize it if you saw it, but you're right. It's probably a word that you would never use. I think I've only heard it.
So that's a word you're not familiar with.
I think I only heard it because I used to play Civilization. And so when it was one of the boats you would get at one point in your video game. Like that's the only reason I've ever heard of that. And again, I just read it. I never once heard it pronounced, so I could not have pronounced it.
Spock says, "Get more educated, dude." Cool. I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out there. Yeah. I feel like you could put that word in front of...
Play more old video games,
Play more dork games.
Yes.
Yeah. You could put that word in front of 100 people. 100 people. How many people clearly there's a lot of, you could pull your people together from a lot of different places. How many people know how to pronounce it and what that is?
No,
out of 100.
I bet you 5 out of 100.
Okay, so I don't think I'm stupid.
I mean,
I can always get more educated.
I think you are, but not
I am
for that
far
reason.
from stupid. Okay, I agree. Yeah, that word does not. Wow. Yeah. Okay. I'm. Before I say anything, I don't want to. For sure.
Move it along. Move it along. Lots of new discs coming.
We'll move it along.
I wish that, and I guess maybe it's none of our business. I would love to know in the I don't even know if the PDGA cares or knows who actually molds these companies' discs. Like, is it an independent molder, or are these like, is this something that Innova is molding or MVP is molding?
I don't think it. They don't care.
I know they don't care. I would love to just personally know, because that to me it doesn't make a big difference, but it is a signifier of the size of your company. If you're just paying somebody else to have your discs molded, or if you are molding your own discs with your own machine, I think that maybe that sets a standard or a size of your company that I would love to personally know. And we see new discs from new manufacturers and new names come up all the time. So I don't know. Yeah,
if I will likely never get to a point of manufacturing my own discs. Although if the right opportunity came along, I would entertain it. My first rule would be you will have no problem ever reading or pronouncing the name of my disc or disc. I don't know why you'd want that challenge. Just purely from a marketing perspective. Now, if you're spelling a word weird and there's a play on something, maybe I can see that.
Though, Terry, but Nike, Nike. Most people would look at that and go, "Yeah, it's pronounced Nike. It's Nike. It's Nike." Why? No, I'm not pronouncing the E at the end.
Google. Sure, I see where you're going.
Well, Google makes sense because it's spelled. Well, but the word Nike, Nike. I mean, that's one of the biggest brands in the world, and it's not pronounced how it's spelled. So it's all about brand awareness. I don't mind if a company or a disc or something like that has a unique name. It's your job as a manufacturer to get that out there and across and make sure that it's memorable. And it's more difficult when you have a name like that.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly know that there can be you can play that into an advantage. And of course, I think about some of we'll say the words from the either creatures or animals or whatever that we've seen from Innova. So I understand that I'm maybe even contradicting myself. Like the word wraith, rock spelled ROC. Obviously I know those are all
mythical creatures.
Yeah, and things that exist. Valkyrie is not a word that's just a commonly used word
but it's
unless
spelled, it's spelled how it looks.
Yeah. I just, I don't know. Again, there's maybe a reason why I don't run or own a manufacturing company. And I still chuckle, in all fairness, I still chuckle at the Annex Onyx conversation that comes out of Discraft and that naming convention. That's still odd to me to this day. You know how many times to this day I constantly still hear everyone refer to an Onyx as an Annex? I mean, yeah.
I mean, we hear people call it Innova versus Innova.
True. That's I guess yeah, I hear you.
I know you do. I'm forcing you to hear me. I have the microphone. I can turn you off at any given point.
Oh, yeah. Let's not do that. All right. I don't know if there's anything else on the board. Danielle has great examples. Reebok, Adidas, they are all weird names, but we're just used to them. And I do understand that. Also names like, Google and just truly made up words. I understand what the value is in those now. Yeah. Okay. I'm just gonna stop talking about it.
Probably a good idea.
Sounds like, yeah. Do you have anything else that we need to talk about here, Johnny? As I'm trying to read down the board.
No, I really don't. I think we've covered this week pretty well, and we got big events. Everyone's looking forward to our next event, the Delaware Open. So I think we can move on.
The Delaware Disc Golf Challenge.
Whatever. That too.
Respect thy name. Delaware Disc Golf Challenge. Yes, looking forward to it. I believe is it myself and Philo and Christine Jennings, I think, are in the booth. I'm going to take a quick look.
Okay.
Well, it's not really cheating,
Wow.
but I'm going to take a quick look. It is myself and Philo, and then myself and Christine Jennings. So that's who you're going to hear from. If you're not sick of me talking, you get more. If you are sick of me talking, too bad, you get more of me. But that's what we're going to have this weekend. So looking forward to having Philo and Christine all come to the Milwaukee area. I'm excited to be back in the Milwaukee area for a few days before I take off on an adventure that will span a few weeks as well. It's been some time. Talking about some new names, new studio next week. Throw gyro. Talking about discs, I got a Mutant with a bottom stamped Conopiste logo for the European 2 weeks ago. It's cool. Yeah, and then a conversation about VII versus Savage. There's an explanation or a write-up or a blog post on their site where they explain how and where that's all come about. So you guys should go definitely take a look at that. Yes, Daniel, you get Tear Bear all weekend, myself and Philo and Christine. So with that, we're going to call it. It's been a lot of fun, and it's actually worked out quite well, surprisingly, that this time I'm coming remotely from the Comfort Inn outside of Ogden, Utah. That's all you?
Oh, no, I thought you were surprised at how well everything worked with the interview and everything. I'm like, come on, that's really? I mean, like, why? What would ever lead you to believe we'd have a problem on Smashbox, Terry?
Yeah, problems or technology or anything like that.
365 podcasts. An entire circle.
A whole year's worth. An entire year's worth.
Circle around the sun, my friend. All the way around the sun.
Oh my gosh! Could you imagine going back and listening to some of ours?
You could listen to one a day, and you'd get through us in a whole year.
Oh my gosh,
it sounds like torture.
Would you take? I was gonna say, would you take that, or if someone said you had to serve 2 years in solitary confinement. However, if you spent one of those years listening to one of our podcasts per day, you could then forego the second year. So essentially 1 year of listening to our podcast, one per day. Would you take that offer? Or would you take 2 years in solitary confinement or 1 year of listening to us once a day? You would?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know that everybody, I don't think most would.
I think most would. I'm not saying most would enjoy it, but I'm thinking you could probably get through.
They would chop off a year for listen. All right. Jay says better than Nick and Matt. I don't think so.
There's a clientele that we should really try to get in with is prisons. I mean,
yes.
I mean, if we can sell this to the prison industrial complex, we're
oh my
in.
Gosh.
You know,
we should get in with big prison.
Let's get in with big prison.
Oh my gosh! Just think if we could get paid to get syndicated.
Tour? We could do a prison tour.
Oh yeah, another one that I've already.
I mean, Johnny Cash did it. It worked out for him. Folsom.
Yeah.
We can. Listen, that is an audience that is stuck there. They have to listen. They can't turn us off.
About to watch y'all's first episode, Chris says. Oh gosh, that does sound a little bit daunting and scary, honestly.
That does sound awful scary.
Spoiler alert, features Steve Dodge. And believe it or not, I think a lot of us wouldn't be here without Steve Dodge. And I'm going to end it on that note because
100%.
To this day, I think so incredibly highly of him. So we're going to call it again. Thank you to Sandra in our regular show. Thank you to all of the Rocky Mountain Women's Disc Golf Championships peeps and then some, and Stafford and everyone else that entertained and hosted us in some capacity this weekend. This previous weekend, we are looking forward to the Delaware Disc Golf Challenge, the second to last stop on the PDGA National Tour. For Johnny V and Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy, this has been podcast after show 365. We will see you in just a few days, coming to you from the Milwaukee studio, pushing out the Delaware action. We'll see you then when you step inside the Smashbox.